Hello everybody and welcome back to the Overlap Breakdown channel. Now I'm here this morning to decide whether Viktor Gyokeres is technically not good enough for Arsenal or whether Arsenal are not technically good enough for him. Okay, good morning and welcome back to the channel. During the very small break we've got off with no Premier League games midweek, we thought it'd be good to cover on the channel something that's been on my mind for a good few weeks and months now, which is to do with Viktor Gyokeres and sort of his turn down of form in the last couple of weeks and months for Arsenal Football Club. Now, it's been a very heated debate I've actually seen online. A lot of people are saying he's not good enough for Arsenal, his touch isn't good enough, he looks sluggish, he looks too slow, he's taking too many touches. But then the other side of the camp is that Arsenal are potentially failing him by not creating enough chances for the Swede. Now, I'm going to try my best and give my own opinion on what I've made of the Viktor Gyokeres transfer so far at Arsenal. The dynamics between him, Arsenal, the way Arteta uses him. We're going to compare him to Arsenal's other nines under Arteta, see what the like-for-like similarities and differences are, the difference between Sporting. I'm going to answer a lot of your guys' questions that you've sent to me on Twitter, so don't forget to always get involved in them conversations when we have them in the mornings when I post about the video that we're going to record. So Arteta's quote on Gyökeres after his somewhat lacklustre performance against Wolves. There's a collaboration of the two between Gyökeres and the midfielders. He was in really good positions a lot, and the ball didn't get into that area quick enough, sharp enough, or just with the precision that was required for the nine to score a goal. But his work and intentions were always there, and we need to keep insisting. Now, what Arteta's mentioning there is what a lot of Arsenal fans have mentioned, and I've got Wolves' 5-4-1 that was set up because this game was a really interesting one from a Gyökeres point of view, because this is when he signed what a lot of fans thought Arsenal were going to encounter more often this season, which was teams now know that Arsenal are going to be one of the favourites to win the league title this season, if not the favourite. They've signed a new striker. Their question's always been about taking risks, beating these teams that they should be beating quite, by big scorelines. They should be blowing these teams out the water, as some people may say. But it's not really happened for Gyökeres in games like this. Now, he has scored, obviously, in the Premier League, but he's scored against Forest, Leeds, Burnley. Obviously, in the Champions League, he's got a little bit better of a record, which we'll go on to speak about later about the league adaptation. But this is something in these positions that I'm concerned about with Gyökeres facing a low block. Now, it was a bit of a, battle online for people to say that, you don't get these large spaces in the Premier League that you do in the Portuguese league. He's a transition player. Now, we highlighted on the channel, Viktor Gyokeres last season in the entire of European footballing competitions was the most assists, dribbles leading to assist and most dribbles leading to a goal combined. And the people that were following on from him were the likes of Salah. Now, when you look at Viktor Gyokeres and you think of the amount of goals he scored and the presence he has on the pitch and how big he is, more importantly, you don't really necessarily think that he's a dribbler, a carrier, someone who runs the channels. Like, you think he's going to be between the posts, occupying maybe two centre-halves, using his body, using his frames, getting his arm across, really big lad, defending the ball. But that is not what Gyökeres is, and we've never ever insisted on this channel that he is a phenomenal box holder as a striker. He doesn't really dominate the box as well as someone who maybe like Kai Havertz uses his size better in deep situations. Now, I'm going to show you some examples just in the data and in the screenshots that we've got from some games to illustrate why, for me, he's not great at the moment with his tendencies against a low block. So I've actually got the touches and possession loss percentage. So on your screen right now, we've got 25, 26, and we've got the highest percentages for possession lost. So Viktor Gyokeres at the moment in the Premier League is losing possession 42% of the time with his touches. So that's nearly every other touch he's losing the ball. Now, that might seem really bad, and unfortunately, it's probably even worse than you think. So if we just take this on into what a box situation looks like, we can imagine that if the ball is synced deeper like this, Viktor Gyokeres is a striker who's taking too many touches in this space to work angles. And his best shots, we'll go on to speak about this in the screenshots, His best shots come when he's given a 1v1 battle where he can get his body in and he can take more than 2 or 3 touches to work his opposition defender. He wants to receive the ball, kill it, then have a tussle with the defender, trap the ball a little bit, work an angle, whether it's left or right, and then take the ball, scoop it away from his defender, and work an angle for a shot on goal. That is where his better instincts come in a deep block. But that is taking more touches. We know this in the Premier League. You don't get afforded time and touches in deep blocks, especially against teams like Wolves. And he still did very well in a situation against Wolves like this, so we will talk about that. But against your more stubborn defences, your more aggressive central defenders, I'm looking at Everton at the weekend, Arsenal got to go there. He may struggle with that. Gyökeres is taking over 3 touches in the box per shot, which is showing just how much he wants to feel the ball in them deep box situations and why the Premier League teams won't afford him of that all the time. And for me, he's got to be more of a sharpshooter, more of a one-touch finisher. I don't think teams are going to let him touch the ball more frequently than he already is, if he is to replicate them numbers from Sporting. But I don't think it's something that cannot be worked on. I just think sometimes his technical ability really lets him down in the box. Now, if I compare that possession loss stat to Arsenal's other centre-forwards under Mikel Arteta that we've noticed, I've got Mikel Merino, Gabriel Jesus and Kai Havertz. Merino, we've filtered it, so it's only his games as centre-forward, so his numbers are not skewed. 42% of his touches have equalled in a possession loss for Gyökeres. It's 28% for Merino, 26% for Jesus, and 24% for Kai Havertz. These are completely different centre-forwards in terms of looking after the ball. And we knew this when Gyökeres signed. We knew he was a completely different centre-forward. And what do I mean when I say he's a different type of centre-forward? All right, if I just move this back, and this is why I honestly think that Arsenal had signed a player like Gyökeres and why he could potentially end up being a second string option to provide a different dynamic. Now, against Arsenal, a lot of teams like to sit off because they get a lot of joy there. But sometimes opposition actually step onto them. And teams like Leeds, where he scored this goal, are a little bit more aggressive in their approach. So if we can imagine that the line just creeps a little bit further up, just makeshift like this. And if we look at Viktor Gyokeres' skill set and what we highlighted when he first joined from Sporting to Arsenal, it was his spins into the channel. Something that, again, you wouldn't really associate with a Kai Havertz and a Mikel Merino. These are between the post number 9s. Kai Havertz obviously does the drop-in, same with Merino, but they are more ball-to-feet players. They don't really spin into wide areas and then crash the channels like this. Viktor Gyokeres' game is largely around doing just that. If a ball is here, his runs are very, very different to a conventional number 9, and that is to take the ball or receive the ball in these wide pockets of space. Now, I'm going to show you a few examples of what I mean by this. So, up on your screen right now, we can see that Arsenal in the 40th minute against Wolves. Jurrien Timber has got the ball and just off the screen, running towards sort of the midpoint of the screen on the right, just out of shot, is Gyökeres making a spin into the channel versus a centre-half. Now, Gyökeres ends up losing this duel, but if we just pause it on this screenshot here on 40-50 in the game, there is no one occupying the box or no one crashing the box for Arsenal in this picture. Their number 9 is holding the width on the right against their left centre-half. So Gyökeres is over here chasing a ball into the channel. They've got no number 9 present in the box, and the only other player attacking the space is Gabriel Martinelli. So currently, for Arsenal's dynamics against deeper blocks when Gyökeres is supposed to be the man to arrive in that space, these runs seem a little less efficient or even productive, you could say, because they're not really gaining Arsenal much. But this isn't something that I would consider a Gyökeres fault. As we mentioned, again, when he signed for Arsenal, for Gyökeres to exceed like he did at Sporting, Arsenal would have to change a lot of their style of play. A lot. They would have to play more transitions. They would have to play more balls into the channels for him to chase. Their wingers would have to attack more centrally. They would have to use more box crashers behind him. They would have to cater a lot more towards his strengths for him to replicate what he did at Sporting. Now, this doesn't mean that Gyökeres is bad in terms of when he does this channel running. He actually is quite good at it. So I've got another example here against Olympiacos in the Champions League. Now again, ball is on the left-hand side of the pitch. It's at 40 minutes, 10 seconds gone. Viktor Gyokeres now makes the same exact run, but this time it's on the left-hand side. So he's always going to the ball-dominant side. He takes the ball, squares up his defender, and again, there's not really a central presence for Arsenal. He's the central presence, and he's dragged the ball out wide. However, in this situation, he dribbles at his defender 1v1, again, taking a bit more touches than he would usually. He takes the ball around the defender on his right foot, and it's a really unfortunate finish because it's actually a really good bit of work from him here. So, again, we're looking at getting Gyökeres into spaces where he can take more touches and get a bigger feel for the ball. And the way he does that as a player is to attack big spaces and receive the ball here 1v1, because that distance is a lot more favourable than that distance against a low block. And when he can afford one loose touch potentially extra on the transition, it makes for him to be a lot more comfortable of a centre forward for this Arsenal team. Now, I am going to move on into a good bit of play by Gyökeres, and something that he's doing well, but he did even better than when he's come back from injury. So he built up a little bit of momentum, got the injury, and then he's sort of working himself back into that physical frame. But against Wolves, this was something that I noticed from Leandro Trossard, who spots a run from Gyökeres against a little bit more of an aggressive defensive line. Gyökeres makes this run across the face of the defender, and he again gets that situation in the box where he can back up into the player, get his arms out, pluck the ball, take a little bit more touches of the ball, get a better feel for the ball, shift the ball onto one foot, and he's actually worked a really good goal-scoring opportunity from something of a nothingless ball. So when I'm talking about Viktor Gyokeres spinning into them narrow portions of the box, I want to explain to you how much different that is in comparison to a player like Kai Havertz. So on the screen right now, in 24-25, we've got Kai Havertz open play touches, and we can see that they have a 8% touch map in the goal mouth of the box, and he's got 1% and 5% on the either sides of it, so them narrow pockets on the sides. Viktor Gyokeres now has 12% of his open play touches in the goal mouth, but with 14, which is 7% on one side, 7% on the other, in them narrow patches. So we've gone up from 6% to 14% of them touches coming in them wider pockets of the box, which is showing how much different of a striker he is in comparison to Kai Havertz. And we're going to move on now into why that may not actually suit Arsenal as an overriding chance-creating team. For me, Arsenal as a football team don't suit that style of chance. Now, when we're looking at Viktor Gyokeres and when we're looking at Kai Havertz and we're looking at the difference between them, Kai Havertz is a 6-yard box striker who can finish with his head. He's a one-touch finisher. His movement's really evasive. He shadows himself into the box. You know, he ghosts in there. He's often unmarked. He gets away from his marker. And that is where a lot of the criticism has come of Gyökeres, or potentially of Arsenal, because people are claiming, or fans are claiming, that he's making the right movements and the wide players aren't giving him the service. Now, I don't agree. I'm going to be honest, I don't necessarily agree. I do think overall, Arsenal aren't that great of a chance-creating team for a conventional centre-forward anyway. I do think a lot of the dynamics on this left side aren't really tailored towards creating multiple chances for a striker, whereas Saka can do both sides of the coin. So I do think there's sort of an imbalance here on the left to constantly create chances for the striker. But I think Viktor Gyokeres just doesn't necessarily suit the chances that Arsenal create. And the chances that he does suit are these really long stretching balls where he has a lot more time, a lot more space to afford himself touches, get a feel for the ball, and square up opposition defenders 1v1 in the channels when he's dragged them out wide, when he's got to rough them up maybe, where he's back into him. You're not going to get that opportunity as much at Arsenal than you are at, let's say, even at Manchester United. Manchester United play a little bit more transitional, but I think this season, as Arsenal have got a little bit since the injuries to the centre-halves and things have got a little bit tight together and teams now think they can get something out of the game, teams are going to sit off Arsenal, are going to let them have the ball more in deep blocks. And that's where Gyökeres' weaknesses, or not necessarily weaknesses, but not his strengths, are highlighted more so than ever. And that is where 90% of Arsenal's games are going to take place throughout the remainder of the season. They are going to be against stubborn, low blocks, which is often what they've been criticised for, not taking risks and not throwing the kitchen sink at it. How many times have we heard that phrase of Arsenal? But for me, everyone was banging on about this centre forward, and it doesn't seem at the moment like he's going to be the one to snap them low blocks and create or score out of nothing. Let's see. I've actually asked everyone on Twitter for their questions that I'm going to answer about Gyökeres. These are pretty much all from Arsenal fans. So Tahib said to me, is his movement as problematic as the lack of clear-cut chances created for him? The narrative seems to be around his movement, but I see some players hesitant at times to play that ball. Now, for me, it comes back to what we've just spoken about, which is the balls that Gyökeres favours are these low probability balls in behind. And Arsenal have never really been that team to play them low probability balls. If Arsenal are breaking against a press, and let's say they work it past the opposition here, and Zubamendi's got the ball and they've got time to run, the players that Arsenal have constructed in the front five, Declan Rice, Zubamendi, Ødegaard, I would exclude Eze from this because I do think he's got that quality, and we've seen it against City for the equaliser on that transition. Saka, Martinelli, they're not players I would familiarise with playing these low probability balls from deep in behind to a striker. What they do more so than anyone is take the ball, set the opposition's line back deeper, everyone gets up the pitch, everyone moves forward, he's squared his fullback 1v1, maybe Timber's on the outside, and we look back and then we bring it here, and then it forms again into that horseshoe-like thing we've often spoke about, which is this more settled possession where he's working it back and across and across. And I think Arteta and Arsenal as a football team want to have more sustained possession to pen teams in rather than play on them counter-attacks whenever they pop up. Towards the start of the season, Arsenal were more interested or likely, I think, to play more direct in behind. Now the margins are a bit tighter and the games are getting tougher with the centre-backs out especially, that safeness, I think, is now creeping a little bit back in, and that doesn't favour Gyökeres when he wants the ball playing in them big spaces to score the goals that we've highlighted in them screenshots. Next question from Abdul J. Does he initiate contact too much? I feel instead of focusing on his next action, then using his physicality, he almost goes looking for a battle and then has no idea what to do in his next action, versus Haaland, who'll use his strength when needed, but he's not related to the action. So what does Abdul mean by that? It's a great question, by the way, honestly, absolutely brilliant question, because as we've spoke about, he initiates contact all the time in these deep blocks. Now, Gyökeres, you might disagree with me. If you describe Gyökeres, I wouldn't necessarily describe him as an elite physical centre-forward bulldozer-like player. I'm thinking of Lukaku's, for example. And Haaland's. They are centre-forwards, Drogba's, who are massive, massive, towering, imposing players, but they don't always initiate the contact. Sometimes they like the separation. Now, as we've mentioned, Gyökeres' better moments have come with the contact on him. But what that has now made is that when the ball is maybe in the final third, the centre-halves are 100% aware of him. So he's not ghosting into the penalty area. He's not letting the defender just forget about him and get off the blind side. You've got to sort of make the defender forget you're there and sometimes play in the blind side and not initiate contact. How many times have we seen Erling Haaland score goals with 2 metres of space in the opposition's penalty area, and everyone's gone, how's he got that much space? Everyone knows he's there. It's because he doesn't initiate contact all the time, like Abdul says. With Gyökeres, he's so happy to engage himself in contact all the time. And when he's not being convincing, when he's dealing with that contact in all moments, as we mentioned, the one against Wolves when he's been pushed off into the channel, when he's not really effective in them moments, it does make a lot of them quite wasteful. And I've got some more screenshots to just throw up on your screen, and we're going to go back to the game against Wolves at home again in the 12th minute this time. And we can see pretty much what I'm saying right now. So Arsenal, attacking shape against the low block. Wolves got loads of bodies in the back line. Arsenal have got 5 stretching across the front. Jurrien Timber's on the ball. He finds Bukayo Saka. Bukayo Saka twists. And Gyökeres has once again come nearer to the ball. And he comes nearer to the ball and he latches onto the left centre half and initiates that contact. He then looks to get his arm across. Again, initiates the contact in the box. Drags it just wide of the penalty area and he loses possession here. That, for me, is where Gyökeres' tendency to constantly go physical is letting him down. So if I just show you what I mean on the board, so obviously Timbers passed it to Saka. Gyökeres, he's stood there with central defenders all around. Arsenal have got a front 5. They've got 1v1s all over the park. What happens is Gyökeres decides to leave his central defender and go all the way over to the ball and spin in behind here to receive the ball here. Now, it's not even a half a chance if he gets past that defender. And the problem is a lot of the time he doesn't get past the defender. I've shown you moments against Wolves and there was a couple more, I think, against Newcastle where he does it sometimes, but it's such a low probability chance that he's not a tier 1% physical specimen up front that because he's engaging these duels every time he crashes the box, it does seem a little bit wasteful. And again, if we just look at the last screenshot, if he wins that duel, let's say he shrugs off the player that is guarding him, there's not really that many players in the box. Eze and Saka are in there, but Eze's not even stood in front of the defender. He's not even goal side. Saka's behind the ball. That is not going to generate many opportunities for yourself or for the team. So the decision for Saka or Martinelli to recycle the ball in that horseshoe might seem annoying at times, but it's less riskier. And that's obviously the question that always comes about of Arsenal. So I have got one more question to throw up on your screen. And how much of his struggles are down to the team and how much are down to him? Can't help but think that his movement in the box leaves a lot to be desired. So we arrive at this situation now. Well, I've actually phoned up Clive, and he's going to give us a video now on the screen to show you what he thinks about the situation, because he's more of an Arsenal fan representative who's watched Arsenal a lot this season. I'm going to throw that up on the screen for you and just take this in.
Viktor Gyokeres, Arsenal need a centre-forward, we were all told. Well, we've got one, but are we really playing to him? Is this a style thing or is this a Viktor Gyokeres thing? And I think that's the debate that we're all having as Arsenal fans. He has looked a little bit sluggish on occasions. We have to accept that. We have to accept that he's taken a while to settle. But then he did settle. And there has been some shoots of good play. Newcastle, Burnley, Atletico Madrid at home. There's something there. But what's changed? I think we are not playing as direct as we were at the start of the season. Other teams have not worked us out, but starting to respect us a lot more. It's a little bit more static in their defending, a little bit more lower in their blocks. And so the spaces to get in behind and be more direct are not there. And we are not playing as direct. We are taking our time to move into attack again, much like we did last season. Recently, we've become a little bit more right side dominant. And so that diversity of attack has changed. And this is all part of a season. You can't play the same way all of the time. So Viktor Gyokeres is trying to combine, trying to come short, trying to be part of the group. And when he comes short and the ball goes in behind from a cross and he's not there, everyone says, where are you? And so I do think it's an adaptation thing. If you ask me with my eyes and my heart, I wanted him to be a little bit sharper and a little bit quicker. I saw him in Lisbon when we played against Arsenal, when he played for Sporting, and he looked quick and aggressive. And the words I used to describe him was, he was relentless in his running. If I'm honest and I look at him now and I say, are you as relentless in your running? That's step one. So you've got to rebuild your game based on your running power and your movements and repeat sprints. Do that first. If your players are not giving you the ball, then it's their issue. If you're not moving, then it's your issue. So get back to your basics, run, work hard down the side, provide that mobile target, and we go from there. So it's style, I'm afraid. Do we really want a centre forward, or are we happy with a false nine as a group? But if we do need this, I think in the club, we need a true number 9 that moves. So he needs to be that player for us, and we need to pick the right game for him. So my thoughts.
So yeah, that is what Clive is insinuating, which is how much of it is on him, how much of it is on the style, how much of it is on Arsenal. For me, I think I'd be a little bit worried about Gyökeres because I do think he'll be better than what he is right now. I think he's getting back up to speed, and I do think some of the games he had before his injury, and when he come back against Chelsea, he looked physically a lot sharper and he looked leaner. And I just think that he had a bit of momentum and then he killed it off a little bit with the injury. Now he's back and he's going to take a little bit of time to get up to speed. But with Havertz coming back into the fold, Jesus coming back into the fold, when games are like this, especially the Wolves game, which, as I repeat, Arsenal will play plenty more games like Wolves than they will plenty more games like Real Madrid or Newcastle, teams who are going to just press you out the park and you can launch balls into Gyökeres. They will play more Wolves, is what I'm trying to say. And I think at the moment, they're strikers to favour them games and not necessarily him. But I do think in certain situations and certain games, he can be a handful in the channel when Arsenal want to play more direct. When him and Eze play together, I think that's a really good combination because they both have one thing in their mind, and that is to play in behind and play off the cuff and get it into the channels. But I do think, from what we've mentioned in the video today, I think he's taking way too many touches against a set block to generate his own shots. And I don't think Premier League centre-halves are affording you that much time. I think he's too reliant on space in behind, which isn't a bad thing, but it just means he probably won't solve that centre-forward mystery for Arsenal when they play the teams like Wolves, even like your Villas, who defend really, really well. He will struggle sometimes in them games. I do think he can score goals. I do think he's got... I think he's got a feel for goal scoring. But some of his movements in and around the penalty area, as we mentioned before, the defenders are too aware of his presence. His presence in himself, he feels too big. I should be watching the game, get past you a little bit, and you should be just ghosting up in the penalty area, where it feels like he's got such a big profile and he wants to do so much and he wants to do all these dribbles and he wants to take it in the channel and he wants to spin and he wants to shrug a defender over. He's making himself too much of a deal. Haaland goes through matches without having touches of the ball. Gyökeres is very similar for touches per 90, but he feels like he's so just moving everywhere all the time. I would just hold back a little bit more, play between the posts a little bit more, be less ball, hungry. But I do think he has very good upside against teams who will press you. And when you want to go more into the channels and you want to really play a longer ball in behind and you want to get him in. But it is a genuine concern. It's not a massive, massive worry for Arsenal because they've got centre-forwards who have proven to score goals, even if it's not 20, 30 plus goals. And they are still top of the league. But I just wonder, in this run-in that Arsenal are about to face, coming up to the Christmas period, it's an absolutely huge run-in with a lot of tricky games, a lot of games like the Wolves that we mentioned where teams are going to defend low. I wonder how much he may suffer as Havertz and Jesus come back into the picture. So, yeah, let us know what you've made of Viktor Gyokeres so far at Arsenal, what you make of his current situation at Arsenal, whether or not he will end up being the first choice match winner up front for Arsenal, whether or not he will win them the Premier League. But yeah, please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to the channel. I'll be back next week for some more analysis here on the Overlap Breakdown. Thank you very much.